Manasseh Sogavare has accused critics of his country's security pact with China of undermining his government and threatening to invade. It comes after Scott Morrison described a Chinese military base as a red line for Australia and the United States.
We deplore the continual demonstration of lack of trust by the concerned parties and a touching warning of military intervention, Mr. Speaker, in Solomon Islands if their national and strategic interest is undermined in Solomon Islands, and I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs has highlighted that. In other words, Mr. Speaker, we are threatened with invasion, Mr. Speaker, and that's serious, What is more insulting, Mr. Speaker, in this attitude, and therefore totally unacceptable, is we are being treated as kindergarten students walking around with Colt 45s in our hands, and therefore we need to be supervised, Mr. Speaker. We are insulted.
Solomon Islands Prime Minister with some pretty strong words in Parliament yesterday. Well, Opposition Senate Leader and the Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong joins us in the studio. Good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Good morning. Good to be in the studio
It is great to have you here. What did you make of that language?
Well, look, you know, Prime Minister Sogavare has his views. Australians have ours. And if I get the opportunity to serve as your Foreign Minister, I look forward to the opportunity to discussing those views with the Prime Minister. But I would make a broader point, which is since the end of World War II, the Pacific family, of which Australia is a part, has ensured that we have provided for, that is, all of the members of the Pacific family, have provided for the security of the region. Now, we would, in government, work with all countries to ensure that principle remains. And I say that principle is above or goes beyond any single leader or any single nation.
I noticed yesterday your leader said that it would revolve around having respect for all of the Pacific family, but what's the nuts and bolts of that? What does that actually look like, and what does it mean when you've got a relationship that is clearly very tense?
Well, clearly it is, and you know, I think it's quite clear that there's going to be a lot of work required and will take a fair bit of time, given where the relationship with Prime Minister Sogavare, but our relationship with other parts of the Pacific, other parties in the Pacific has got to under Prime Minister Morrison. We've announced a policy which is about leveraging Australia's strength, using the power of our proximity. We recognise it's going to take a lot of time and work, but it's necessary because securing our region is fundamental to Australia's security.
Does it surprise you that Scott Morrison said he hasn't spoken to the Solomon Islands Prime Minister during the election campaign?
Quite a lot of the way in which Prime Minister Mr Morrison has dealt with this issue has surprised me, and I think Australians have been surprised. We know that we were warned about this. Australia was warned about this in August of last year, and despite that and a number of other warning signs, I don't think Australians see at a political level action being taken that reflects the need, the imperative for Australia to continue to work to be the partner of choice. It's not just, you know, this is not an optional extra. This is fundamental to our security.
If you become Foreign Minister after the election, what would you do immediately with the Solomon Islands?
Well, we would work with all members of the Pacific. Of the Pacific community.
I'm trying to read between the lines here because I feel like you're being a little vague with that language.
No, actually, I think quite deliberate, because I think it's important that we reinforce the principle that we are all responsible for the security of this region. You know, obviously, as I said, the Prime Minister Sogavare has his views, but I think it is clear that many nations in the Pacific do want this long-standing principle that we don't have external strategic powers providing security in the region is one that should be maintained.
The US is sending a hospital ship to Honiara. Is that something that you would consider doing if you won government?
Oh, look, I think we have historically, Australian governments of both persuasions have historically provided a lot of assistance into the region, including for Solomon Islands. So we welcome the US support that was agreed, and we should continue to provide the assistance we can. I noticed before your report also, for example, PNG wanting an NRL team. That's the sort of relationship building measure that we should be supporting.
You wanted briefings on Solomon Islands. Has that happened?
I've had one, which was shortly after this story broke, and we have sought more.
Will you get them? Are you confident you'll get them?
Right. Well, we're in an election campaign. This goes to Australia's national security and foreign policy interests. I would assume that those briefings will be arranged.
Right. It's a big day economically for both leaders. They're pushing the message that they can do best. It seems that whatever one promises, the other quickly promises the other. Not a lot of difference between both sides for voters if they're trying to work it out.
I don't think that's right at all. I know that's convenient for some people to say, but I don't think that's right. I mean, this is a question of what sort of country you want to be, what sort of leader you want. Do you want someone who's, who will always take responsibility and who will step up in Anthony Albanese? Or do you want someone who, tells people it's not his job? The reality is, if we look at the government, look at Mr Morrison, we've got inflation going up, cost of living going up, debt going up, and wages comparatively going down.
Well,
and people understand what that means.
You're going to inherit that economy. We've just seen the US. You're going to inherit it if you win the election, I should say. We've seen in the US.
I assume that was a conditional.
Yeah, we just need to put that in there. 0.5% increase in the US. I mean, that is something you are going to have to deal with.
And the Reserve Bank has made clear that regardless of who's in government, that they will make decisions about interest rate rises, and this is the first amongst what has been flagged of a number of interest rate rises or further interest rate rises. I'll make the point though, this is why you've got to make sure you look to quality investments through the budget in improving the capacity of the economy, grow the economy without adding to inflationary pressures. And I'd make 2 points, 2 policies that I'd point to on that. One is a policy for fee-free TAFE places in areas of skill shortages. That adds to the capacity of the economy. And the second is childcare, which is a good thing for families, but it also, as you know, will improve women's workforce participation. Yeah,
so just on that, because why not commit to paying super on the government-funded paid parental leave? Has Labor ditched that policy?
Well, look, we haven't finished the election campaign, but we've had to we are making decisions about targeted spending and obviously the childcare policy, which has been criticised by Scott Morrison, that's a very important policy, as are investments in aged care, also criticised by Scott Morrison, but I think Australians understand we can't continue having this situation of neglect and investments in manufacturing, advanced manufacturing here in Australia. This is all about a more prosperous future and one where we have secure jobs and better wages.
Why hasn't Anthony Albanese been to South Australia? Is he going to make an appearance during the election campaign?
Yes, I'm sure he will. I think he has been to South Australia.
Well, I've been informed by my reporters on the road that he hadn't been.
Right. Oh, during the election campaign. Yeah, I think he came just before the state election. So, no, I don't think you should worry about him being in South Australia.
Well, wondering what's happening with Boothby. Do you think it's possible?
Well, we haven't won that seat for a very long time, obviously, I think 1949. But a couple of points. One is, Labor had a very good result in the state election, and a big driver of that was not only Peter Malinauskas being, such a great leader, a great campaigner, and having such an optimistic vision for the state. A great part of that was the drag on the Liberal vote, which was Scott Morrison. I think there were figures publicly reported that 1 in 2 voters were less likely to vote for Stephen Marshall, the former Liberal Premier, once they were told he was in the same party as Scott Morrison. So we are confident. We are working with some good material, but we've got a lot of work to do and we're very focused on it.
Penny Wong, thanks for coming into the studio.
Great to be with you.